Welcome, everybody, to the X Factor podcast. Today, great episode. Looking forward today. And we're going to be talking about NFL recap from week 8 in the NFL season. We're a little, we're right now as I'm recording, we're just hitting November. In November, the cold games are coming in, and as of Red Zone, Sky Hansen would say, we're getting into the witching hour of the NFL and for the next couple of months. Um, And if you didn't see my college football recap video, it's on the channel. It's out right now. Go watch that, and go see who is the best, and go see what I talk about when I talk about the best of the best of the best coming out. And yes, we are past the trade deadline. Some big trades happened through. I will talk about those in a separate video, and then also the NBA recap. I will talk about also in a separate video. So, here we are. We're going straight into it. Thursday night football game. Buccaneers, Bills. Bills win 24-18. A very slow. The start, 17-10. At the end of the half, it's like, okay, this could get going. And right after that, it just got a little bit boring when it got 24-10. Tampa Bay came back late in the game. Got 18-24. Got the ball back. Threw a Hail Mary. And it just didn't get in. And I seen some bunch of people talk about if there should have been flags or whatever. There, because of holding of Godwin, no. There should be, when you got to realize when it comes to Hail Marys, everyone's holding. Everyone's holding. It's just, there should be no reason to call it. There's a penalty on every single play of every down. But is NFL really going to be fun if they just call that every play? No. You got to let them play, and you got to let them play to the finish, and at the end of the day, Godwin didn't catch it. So, at the end of the day, Tampa Bay lost. They go down to 3-4. Buffalo goes to 5-3. But is Buffalo, are they the same team that that a lot of people talked about last season? Are they the same Buffalo team that we could expect to go to a Super Bowl, despite how they've been playing? The way I see it, the way I look at it, Josh Allen he's been having a pretty decent year, but when you look at the schedule, you got to play Cincinnati next week. They're coming back red hot. Joe Burrow's getting healed up. He's looking very good. Then you go on, you play Denver, who just took down the Chiefs. Anything can happen there on Monday night. Then you go on back and you play the New York Jets, who beat you in week 1. Then you go back and you play the Eagles, who are arguably the best team in the NFL right now. You go on, boom, then you play the Kansas City Chiefs, who has taken you down in the playoffs multiple years in a row. And, during the regular season, Buffalo usually has their number, so there could be a potential win there. And then you go on and they play a mighty Cowboy defense that's going to try to rip them apart in December. Then, boom, they got to play the Chargers, who, despite what's going on there, despite how they're playing at the end of the year, there could be contending stuff there. The Patriots, who just beat you, they're going to come in and try to beat you again. And then you got Miami when you guys took them down 48-20 last time you all played them in October 1st. But, as of right now, I don't see them becoming this Super Bowl caliber team as we've seen the last couple of years. The start of the season, they lost to the Jets. Very bad game, thrown 3 picks, Josh Allen did. They go on, they destroy the Raiders, they destroy the Commanders. And then they destroy the Dolphins, looking like they're about to get on a run. And the next thing you know, Jaguars happen. They lose to the Jaguars. Then, boom, they struggle against the Giants. And then they lose to a Patriots team that's right now in a hole big time. And then they got their way with Tampa Bay. So I feel like if they want to come in and they want to prove to me that they're one of their better teams, they got to go in. They got to beat Cincinnati. They got to go in. They got to get their revenge win over the New York Jets. They got to go on. They got to play a very good game against the Eagles and the Chiefs. And then by the time they play Dallas, you got to play a very good game against them too. Because if you miss one spot, that offense, despite I feel like now that Dallas is slowly getting back on a roll now, because after what happened with the Rams, you can see potentially there could be a chance where they can get on a big run here. Despite depending on what happens. December 17th when this game happens, they have to try to beat them too. So and that's 3 weeks in a row. You gotta play 4 teams that, and I'm gonna include the Jets in this because the Jets have their number right now. They have 4 weeks where they gotta prove where they have to win these games, and it's like, you if you can't beat any of these teams, how do you expect to make to the playoffs? How do you expect to win in the playoffs? And I feel like they're just one big loss away from Stephon Diggs saying, "I want to get traded." We've seen it over the last couple of years. It's brewing. Last year it brewed up even more, but nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody's gonna sit up there and talk about it because everyone thinks it's all gonna be fine. When I feel like Stephon Diggs wants to get out of there. I really do feel like I feel that. I don't say that he wants to, based off his actions in the postseason, what happened, and then over the off season, and then every time they're coming into the game they lose, and you look at it, it's just like, maybe he doesn't want to be there. It's a maybe. And I feel like if they go on this losing streak or don't play well and don't make it to the playoffs, I feel like that's where Stephon Diggs says, I gotta go. But it could be different for all of them. But Josh Allen, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, 31 for 40, very good game from Josh Allen. Running game was not fully there. 4 yards a carry, 14 carries, 67 yards. I would say 4 yards a carry is pretty good. So it's James Cook. He did what he had to do. Khalil Shaker, I think that's how you say his name, had a pretty good game. 6 catches, 92 yards. Very good game from him. Gabe Davis, 9 catches, 87 yards. Stephon Diggs, 9 catches, 70 yards. So a lot of the receivers got there. Dalton Kincaid, who they picked up in the first round, he had a very good game. 5 catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown. He, taking that spot from Dawson Knox, I feel, coming up. It's this Buffalo team. I feel like they have the chance to go in and win, but you also got injuries with, you had an injury at corner, out for the season. Now you're struggling against these teams that you feel like you should dominate against. You need to win against teams like New York or whatever. And I'm not saying Tampa Bay's a bad team. I feel like Tampa Bay is probably in the 7-8 win team category right now. But when you feel like you can pretty much get them, you got to take them down. And then, talking on the Bucs side, I have one concern here, and I think a lot of people have the same concern. Well, really, it's been the concern since this guy got traded. Is Baker the guy for the Bucs, and did the Browns mess up on trading him? Let's see here. Baker, his last season with the Cleveland Browns, he had 17 touchdowns, 13 picks, 3,000 passing yards, 60% completion rating, 83 QB rating. Okay. Let's see here. His first couple years, not very the best years, 22 touchdowns to 21 interceptions in 2019, about 4,000 yards, 17 touchdowns to 14 picks the year before. The year that they made the playoffs, Baker threw for 3,500 yards, 26 touchdowns, 8 picks. Easily his best year. The year after that, the last year that they had him, I said this multiple times, and everyone just said Baker was bad. Baker was bad. No. Baker was hurt through 90% of the season that year. And they decided to play him while he was hurt, to make them think that, Baker's just a bad quarterback, when Baker really is a pretty solid quarterback. So he was hurt. He wasn't able to do a lot. But guess what? He still played through it, and then they're like, okay, we're just going to get rid of you. And so boom, he went to the Panthers. Not a very productive spot with the Panthers, despite where they were going through. And then, he finishes off with the Rams, had 4 touchdowns, 2 picks, 800 yards, 63 completion rating. It was his best, and that one little stint that he had with the Rams, his completion rating was better than every year, despite besides the 2018 season when that was his rookie year. Now, he goes in, he plays for the Buccaneers. He's having the best year when it comes to completion rating. He's at 600 passing yards right now. He has 10 touchdowns, 4 picks, and an 89 QBR, or QB rating, which is his best since 2020. So, his second best, or his third best, was his little sting with the Rams last year. So, yes, Baker is a good quarterback. The Browns did mess up on trading him because they wanted to get an excuse to get him out of there. In Cleveland, it's just it's bad organizations do bad organization things. Bad teams do bad things. Bad teams make bad decisions. That's what you're going to get in the NFL. And boom, they give Deshaun Watson this huge, massive contract after not playing a year of football. And, yes, this year he's 2-1 as a starter, but he beat a Bengals team. He faced a Bengals team and beat them, and had a 55 completion rate, 154 yards, touchdown, and a pick. They go on, they lose to Pittsburgh, who has arguably one of the worst offenses and one of the worst offensive coordinators I have ever seen in my life, in Matt Canada. Then they go on and then they destroy the Tennessee Titans, where Ryan Tannehill was going downhill. So he hasn't really shown me nothing. He has a 61 completion rating, 683 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. Baker's doing a lot better in the games that he's played. He's also haven't been hurt. He's played every game. Hell, he's had a good game every game, besides probably the Detroit Lions game. I would say, and probably the Eagles game. Those are two probably games that he hasn't played well in, but he's also not on one of those top contending teams. And when the Rams traded for Matthew Stafford and traded Jared Goff, everyone was like, okay, well, Jared Goff's not that good of a quarterback. And for me, I always thought Jared Goff was just that system guy. He goes in, and then now you look at Jared Goff and you look at Matthew Stafford, and also an age difference is there. Baker could do the same thing Jared Goff has in Detroit because they're building around Jared Goff and they're giving him that weapons. Rams, they were desperate, so they brought in a quarterback. They won the Super Bowl, and look at them now. Now they're going back into a rebuild. So, so as for the Browns could be making a very bad decision here by what they did. They're going to look back, and they're going to say, well, damn, maybe we should have kept Baker. Maybe we should have sat out Baker, get an early draft pick, and let's try to get this back next year. We know our quarterback's hurt. Let him heal. Well, you didn't do that. So, and now you're in this hole now where you need to sit there and look at everything and say, maybe Deshaun's not our guy. And I'm sorry, when you're getting paid $80-some million or $200 million contract, whatever, and you have a shoulder injury, I get players getting hurt, and that's part of the game. And if you're like hurt, stay out of the game. But if you're just having a little bit of a sore, you're having a little bit of that, get your ass out there and play. Come on now. You want to prove you're the best, you got to play when you're the best. And Deshaun Watson hasn't proved nothing to me to say, he's going to be the future guy for Cleveland. And, it's very hard to sit there and say, right now, if you're sitting there as a Cleveland organization, sit there and say, Deshaun Watson's our guy. We have full faith in him. Deep down, no, you don't. You feel like he's just going to come in and he's going to suck and he's going to go back on that freaking tombstone of quarterbacks that you guys have been waiting to see who's going to be the next guy. So, that's just how it is. So, it's just, that's all I'm going to talk about on that. But we're going to speak of bad. We're going to go to a game that arguably one of the most, if you just like offense, this is the worst game you've ever seen in your life. The New York Jets versus the New York Giants. Battle of New York. Well, Battle of New Jersey. And this was easily one of the worst games I've ever seen. First off, the amount of players that got hurt in this game, awful. Tyrod Taylor, I hope he's doing better now. He had to go to the hospital. So, Tommy DeVito seems like a guy you get off Speranos. He's one of those He's one of those guys. That's what he feels like to me that you're getting out of here. And this game was just, oh my god. I didn't watch the game full, but I went back and watched some parts of the game. Oh my god. It was just, both teams had completed 2 third down conversions. Jets were 2 for 15. The Giants were 2 for 20. They both had 12 first downs. Giants had 70 plays. The Jets had 62 plays. They were both sacked 4 times. A combined 24 punts. 15 penalties altogether. 2 fumbles altogether, and that's just from the Jets. -9 passing yards for the New York Giants. Jets had 58 rushing yards. Giants had 203 rushing yards. This is just the most weird game I've ever seen in my life. And, the last, 3 minutes after the 4th down conversion when Kayvon Thibodeau got the sack, it's like, okay, now Giants are just going to come down and win. They're going to score that field goal, and now they got to score a touchdown. No. Graham Gano misses a field goal. So now the Jets have, I think, 50-some seconds left, or 28-some seconds left, and they got to go down and they got to score a field goal, and boom, they go. And they get down. Boom. And, they had the same thing that happened with Dallas. The ref has to touch the ball before they snap it. Boom, the ref actually runs this time. And boom, they stop the clock. Boom, they get a field goal. They go in overtime. Giants couldn't get nothing going. They had to put the ball away. Jets get the ball. They have I think it was a Dory Jackson got a flag calling him defensive pass interference. Cost them right there, and boom, Jets win the game. To me, this was just the most weird game, and I get the weather and everything was all bad and everything, but man, this was as sloppy as it gets when it comes. This is like a 70s football game. A 1970s football game. It was just nasty, disgusting. It was battle of defense. If we, as we get down to the gritty of it, it was battle of defense, and that was just the gritty of it. It was battle of defense. That's all I'm really gonna talk about. To me, it was one of the most boring games, and I'm one that likes offense. It was very boring when it came to offense, but defense, man, both defense came out and showed something. Jaguars improve to 6-2 after defeating the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the question is, are they the hottest team in the NFL? They're getting up there. They're getting up there, and it's crazy to say, no, they're not, the hottest team. They're going in and they're winning games. They're getting them good. They had a pretty good win over Pittsburgh. It was rainy, nasty weather, and they come in and they beat them by 10. I get there was a play where a field goal happened and there was a flag, or there was supposed to be a flag. They didn't call a flag that Chris Boswell posted on his Instagram, and then someone's trying to blame the refs, and it's like, hold on, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Didn't the refs give Pittsburgh a win last week? Yes, they did. So the fact that they're coming out and they're blaming the refs for why they lost, pretty ironic when they didn't mention nothing about, the first down last week against the Rams. So they want to come out and say something like that. Just please shut up and sit down, because you guys got granted your win last week. And it's unlike they haven't had a chance either. It's Jacksonville. They're one of the better teams in the NFL. But, the start of the season, I feel like, looking at it, they have very good games. They beat, Jacksonville. They are 6-2, and I could say that they're one of the hotter teams. But you also have to look at the games that they've played against. They've played against the Colts, beat them by 10. They lose to Kansas City 17-9. They go on, they lose to Texans. Texans are still in that middle group team. They go on, they destroy the Falcons. Boom, they upset the Bills. They go on, they beat the Colts. Boom, they beat the Saints by 7. Then boom, they beat the Steelers by 10. They got to play San Francisco November 12th. I believe they have a bye this week, so they have to play them on the 12th. If they want to prove to me that they're a legit team, here's the rest of their schedule. They got the 49ers at home. They got to go on. They play the Tennessee Titans at home. Texans, Bengals, Browns, Ravens, Bucks, Panthers, Titans. They have an easy schedule. Let's be honest here. They have a very, very easy schedule. They got to go on there. They got to play Titans. Will Levis, I believe he will be, as of right now, he is the starting quarterback. So, and what we see from Will Levis, this could be a game where this could get close. They go on. They got to play the Texans. They got to beat the Texans. They got to beat the 49ers. Those are 2 games, and the reason I say Texans, they lost to the Texans. They got to go on, they got to beat the Texans. Boom, they got to go on, they got to play 49ers after the 49ers just traded for Chase Young. They got to win that game. Boom, they got to go on, they got to play Cincinnati. They got to go on and beat Cincinnati. I believe that they can beat the Browns. They got to beat the Ravens. They got to go on. I believe they'll beat the Bucks. I believe they'll beat the Panthers, and I believe they'll beat the Titans. So the 3 or 4 games I'm worried about, 49ers, Texans, Bengals, Ravens. If they can win at least 3 of these games, I would say, maybe, they're a pretty good team. Right now, they're hot right now because they're on a 4-game winning streak. Or 5-game winning streak. Right now, they're on a 5-game winning streak. So, yes, they're, everyone's going to say they're looking hot right now. But you got to look at also the teams they have. They've had a very easy, somewhat schedule right now. So, when you got to play those tougher teams, you got to prove that you can beat those teams to say, hey, we're a good team. So, Jaguars, that's what I got for you. Trevor Lawrence, I still think is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And also, Kenny Pickett did get hurt, which honestly, that's been a recurring thing as the last couple of weeks. So that's something to very look forward to when it comes to the future of your team. So, going on to the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles, and it seems like every time the last time Sam Howell played against them, he gave them a pretty good game. He pretty much said, "You know what? I'm gonna battle this, and I'm gonna try to win you. This game. I'm gonna try to win you a football game right now, and let's prove the haters wrong. Let's prove that we can beat the Philadelphia Eagles." And man, if their defense wasn't so fucking awful, they had this game. If their defense wasn't so ass, they would have had that game. And Sam Howell, I'm going to say right now, Sam Howell is not the guy right now. I get he's had, 2 good games against Philadelphia. This was easily his best game of the year. 400 passing yards, a 75% completion rating, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. Best game of the year for him, in my opinion. But you got to look at everything else. He still has thrown 8 interceptions, 4 in 1 game. 4 of them came against the Bills. The Cardinals, they barely swapped out at the Cardinals. They barely beat the Broncos. They got destroyed by the Bills. They lost to the Eagles. They lost big to the Bears. They played the Falcons, which I think they won that game, I believe. Then they lose to the Giants, one of the worst teams in the NFL. Lost to the Giants, and they lose to the Eagles again. But Sam Howell in this game, he gave everything they had. And that defense overall, for the Eagles, they're going to give you a tough game. And Sam Howell surprisingly only got sacked once in that game by Hassan Reddick. And he's a guy that's been sacked 40 times coming up to this point this year. That's a problem. If you want your quarterback to have longevity, you got to make sure he doesn't get sacked that many times. Otherwise, it's just going to be another Andrew Luck situation. But I don't want to talk about Sam Howell right now. I already talked about him. He played a very good game. I want to talk about one person. Jonathan Allen. Jonathan Allen. Let's see what you last week. You were mad because you lost. And you sit there and say that you're done with this bullshit. And it's the last 7 years, that's all you've done is lose. Okay, well, how do you prove it? You go on and you play Philadelphia. Okay, well, when you sit there and say, get ready for Philadelphia, and you're tired of losing, maybe your defense shouldn't give up fucking 38 points. Y'all ever thought of that? Y'all ever thought, you had Montez Sweat, you had Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne. I don't even know if Deron played, but you have all those guys on the D line, and yet you still can't beat. You still put up 38. How many times did they get sacks? They had one sack from Montez Sweat, one sack from Casey Toothhill. They had 2 sacks in that game. And y'all still can't come up and beat this. You still how much that D line is. You still can't come up and win. And yeah, Deron did win. And Jonathan Allen, and you sit there and say you're tired of this when you've only had a couple tackles this year. You've had 3 sacks. Like, come on now. You got to prove something. You want to lose, but you got to prove that you can win these games. And to me, he hasn't proved nothing. But they go on and they traded to Montez Sweat and Chase Young, so it's like, okay, well, what are you supposed to do after that? You lost 2 of your best guys on defense. But I will get into that in another video when it comes to the trade deadline stuff. So I'm just here to recap my opinions on it. So that is, but what Sam Howell said, or what Jonathan Allen said, you can't just sit there and say all that. It doesn't mean anything now because you put up 38 points. And when you go up and play teams like Philadelphia, Dallas, or whatever, you can't put up all those type of points. You can't do all that. So, Dallas Cowboys, they come in, they play the Los Angeles Rams. And coming to this game, coming off the bye, you had a very good game against the Chargers. Coming in, you have to play another Los Angeles team, and they proved a lot. They brought them hard. Coming in a 43-20 victory. There was a blocked punt that went in for a safety. A kick return that got called back. Wish that would have been a touchdown. Cavante Turpin, one of the best kick returners in the NFL. The start of the game, the Rams looked like they had a shot. First drive, I think they had 2 sacks. One on the first play of the game, one on the third play of the game. And they had a total of 3 sacks of the game. Aaron Donald had 2 of them. So it's like, okay, in that first drive, it kind of got bailed out because there was a flag on the defense. So they come out and then boom, they score a touchdown. Jake Ferguson got the first touchdown. So it's like, okay, got some going. Then next thing you know, Dak throws 304 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 25-31. Okay, well, that just out of nowhere. Easily Dak's best game of the year. Cowboys right now, they have a shot to prove a lot this week. They got to come in and they got to play Philadelphia in Philadelphia. And the one chance they had to prove that they're one of the better teams, they had to beat San Francisco if they lost big. They got to come in and they got to win. They got to win against Philadelphia. But this next month and a half could be a very, very easy month for the Cowboys. Besides the Eagles, they got to come in, they got to play the Giants, Panthers, Commanders, Seahawks. Seahawks, I'm not saying are the best team, but they're one of those teams that's like, yeah, you can win games, but when you come to like the wild card, you're going to lose either way. You're not really going to go deep anywhere. I think the only teams that can go deep into the playoffs are San Fran, Philadelphia, and Dallas still needs to prove that they can go deep into the playoffs. They've only went to the divisional round. They went to the divisional round last year. They got to prove that they can get deeper into that. So, I feel like Dallas can do that, despite that they haven't yet. I believe they can. Philadelphia, they got to beat Philadelphia. Dak has had a very good reputation, has a very good resume when it comes to facing Philadelphia. This could end, it's not going to end, but I'm saying that Philadelphia probably wins this one, and Dallas probably takes them on later on in the year and wins it. wins it in Dallas on December 10th. But, Rams, they've only let up 4 touchdowns all year. Or 4 passing touchdowns. Dak did that in one game. So that should show you something. Philadelphia, San Francisco, I think they only beat them by a total of 17 points. I think San Francisco beat them by 7. Eagles beat them by 10, I believe. Dallas comes in and beats them by 23. And and no one's going to sit there and, give credit to this team because it's the Cowboys team. But I'm going to sit here and give it to them, not only because I'm a Cowboys fan myself, but they're doing what every team needs to do to the 2 bad teams. They need to come in and they got to destroy them. Yes, they lost to the Cardinals. I hear that all the time. Yeah, didn't the Cardinals beat the Cowboys? Well, yes, they did. They did beat the Cardinals beat the Cowboys. But every year, that seems to be a recurring thing with the Cowboys. They always seem like to come in and lose to a team that they're supposed to beat. And if I bring up last year, I believe there's a couple teams, last year, if we go back and we look at last year's team, it's popping up right now. Okay. So last year, okay, we're looking at last year right now, preseason, yeah, they beat them, blah, blah, blah. Alright, so boom, Commanders. They lost to the Commanders big. They lost to the Jaguars, which they were 3-5 at the time. Almost lost to the Texans. Let's see here. They lost to the Packers, and they were 3-6 or 3-5 at the time, or whatever. They lost to teams that they were supposed to beat. Packers, Jaguars, and they almost lost to Texans. Last year, that was a recurring thing. They lost to teams that they were supposed to beat. Okay, you go on. The Cardinals, they also made the playoffs. Denver, the Raiders, also made the playoffs. But the Denver Broncos, they lost to Denver. Boom. That's one of them. They go on and that's just one they get to point out there. And then you go back to the year before. Well, the year before they went 6-10. So it's like, but you have Denver, Green Bay, Jacksonville. A couple of teams that they probably should have beaten, but they didn't beat. So every year it seems to be a recurring thing for this Cowboys team. And so yes, we lost to the Cardinals, but still, it's any other team they've came in and destroyed them. And also that week was also a very bad week for that team as they also lost Trayvon Diggs. So yes, it was going to change the part of the game. But look where we're at now, 6-2 or 5-2, 6-2, I believe, coming in. So, but also you got to talk about the Rams right now. Should the Rams trade all their stars for draft picks? And, now the trade deadline's passed, so they can't do it now. But you sit there and think. Matthew Stafford, mid-30s. Big contract. Not playing well. Should get rid of him. You sit there, you look at Aaron Donald. He's going into his 30s. Playing good football. Maybe we get some good draft capital for him. Cooper Kupp coming into his 30s. Maybe we get some good draft capital off of him. Nakua. He's had a very good year. Maybe you sit there and say, well, maybe we can maybe we just start the team over and we bring it and we trade a lot of these guys that have been playing well. And we Puka Nakua, Kyron Williams, we keep them 2 guys and we try to build a team around them guys and try to bring in a quarterback. Stenson Bennett, who's currently now off the team for some personal stuff. Don't know what all that's about, but maybe you sit there as a Rams organization, maybe they should do that. Honestly, I think they should. You get some good draft picks, because no one's gonna want them when they're not playing at a high level. who knows how long it takes before they're off the high level, spots. So that's just something to think about. Kirk Cousins is out for the year with an Achilles tear. What does this mean? Well, they traded Josh Dobbs, so this over the trade deadline. I'll talk about that in the other episode, in another video. So, Kirk Cousins Achilles tear. Sorry for that. Out for the year. Could have been, right now they're going on a very good win streak right now. And I'm not saying this was a good thing that Kirk got hurt, but for the organization, they got to sit there and think, Kirk's going 35. Can he keep doing what he's doing? I believe he still can. Do we come in? Do we try to win the games and try to make it to the playoffs, or do we sit there and try to tank the rest of the year and get Caleb Williams, or do we get a different quarterback? And I'm sorry if I'm getting Caleb Williams, I'm letting him sit down. I'm letting him sit out for a year. I'm sorry. If any team wants Caleb Williams, if you have a veteran quarterback sitting right in front of you, you let Caleb sit for the year and you let them develop him. Russell Wilson, boom, you bench Caleb Williams, you let Russ start over him for the year. You have Kirk Cousins, boom, you let Kurt sit over him, and you let Caleb sit over for the year. Look how it's gone for the Kansas City Chiefs. They draft Mahomes. Boom, Mahomes sits for a year. Alex Smith takes him to the playoffs. They lose. Okay, boom, we move on from you. We give you Patrick Mahomes. If they do that, if you have the right coach around them, man, you have something special there. So that's just something to think about. And then the last thing I'm probably going to talk about, well, actually, no, not the last thing I'm going to talk about. Bears lost to the Chargers. One of the worst Sunday Night Football games I've had to witness in a while. And that game just proved that, to me, that game proved that the Bears are, they need Fields. Because Fields is the only guy that's going to give them a chance to win. I feel like Bears, they're going to have one of the top draft picks. I don't think they should draft Caleb Williams. If they do, I think they're stupid for it. So that is just one thing to really think about there. Geno Smith, Seattle. Talk about Seattle. Geno Smith, I feel like he's proven me wrong a little bit. Or is it just coaching? Because I sit there and think, Russell Wilson, he was protected by Pete Carroll. And I feel like we might be getting the same thing with Geno Smith. Because you see how Russell Wilson's gone in other places. We've seen how Geno played in other places. Maybe this is just the coaching style for Pete Carroll. Maybe that's just how good it is. Maybe Pete Carroll just helps, and having that guys like DK or Jackson Smith and Tyler Lockett, maybe having those guys help, and Kenneth Walker helps. Geno Smith, I still think has been very good, but you also got to think, is it quarterback? Also, Dolphins bounce back win. Colts Saints, didn't see that game, so I'm not really gonna put any word on it. Also, was the Cowboys game against the 49ers, was that the 49ers Super Bowl? Because since then, they have went 0 for 3. They have lost 3 straight. Now you sit there, and yes, Brock Purdy should not have sat and played that Cincinnati game. Brock Purdy was dealing with on concussion protocol, and he still played the game. And I feel, and I'm going to say it right now, I think Kyle Shanahan is holding this 49ers team back. I'm going to say right now, I think Kyle Shanahan is holding this team back because he wants to have a guy, and he wants to have a quarterback that he has to tell what to do. That's not going to work in today's league. That's just going to put your team back. If they had a guy like Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, hell, even if you had Dak Prescott in that fucking offense, you're winning Super Bowls for the next 3 years. Let's be honest here. You put any top 10, top 15 quarterback in, or hell, you put any top 5 quarterback in, you're winning Super Bowls for next year. You put any top 10 quarterback, you're winning the next 3 Super Bowls. They have had contention to win the last 3 Super Bowls, but why can't they? Okay, well, Kyle Shanahan's a choke artist. He's been like it since with Atlanta. He's been a choke artist since Atlanta, with the Falcons, since they lost that Super Bowl when he was offensive coordinator. So, so yes, I do think this Cowboys game was their Super Bowl. And I feel like it was the same thing with Philadelphia a couple years ago. All the Eagles were like, okay, we got to play Dallas this week, very big game, blah, blah, whatever. Talking all this much, yet, boom, they lose. And then go on, and they acted like it was their Super Bowl. And when you act like regular season games are your Super Bowls, you're not getting anywhere at all. Because you're more worried about beating them than you are worried about the rest of the season. Because even though you got to beat them, you still got to play the rest of the year. You still got to play other teams that are going to be like Dallas. And San Francisco, Brock Purdy, proven everyone that he is not as elite as everyone thinks. So, like I said, I'm right on that. Russell Wilson breaks the 16-game losing streak for Kansas City and Denver. Very big one for them. Not really too worried about it. People sat there, and if you try to blame Mahomes having the flu, well, maybe he shouldn't have played the game. They put him in the game. They chose to have him in the game, and they still lost. So I don't want to hear no excuse. He played the game. Get over it. Go on to the next week. And then Raiders are also back to the dysfunctional, which I'll talk about with Josh McDaniels being fired in another video. Last thing I'm going to talk about in today's episode is Will Levis. Will Levis, he looked like the best quarterback out of this draft so far. C.J. Stroud, he's had 9 touchdowns, 1 pick, 1,800 yards. Bryce Young has had 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. They played each other last week. Very ugly game. Bryce Young came out on top. But Will Levis, 1 game, comes out 238 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Will Levis is the future for the Tennessee Titans. I feel like Will Levis, he sat there a little bit looking at the team and sat behind Tannehill, and it's like, okay, well, this is, learning from him. Having Malik Willis there. Malik Willis hasn't gone to what everyone thought he would. And, well, now it's my time to shine. He proved them all wrong. There's a reason why he would have had that top, first round hype. What we've seen against the Falcons proved what that first round hype was like. And, he's not going to have every game he's going to look like that, but that's just some, highlights to see what he could really be. So, to me, it was very, very good seeing him looking like that because, proving that he is probably, coming up as one of the better quarterbacks from this draft class. But also, last thing, Adam Thielen, nobody gives that man credit because he has came in to this Panthers team and has taken this number 1, receiving role and has brought this team life for a little bit. Because he has had, he's had 57 catches, 500 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's had 3 games where he's had over 100 yards. His worst game was week 1, was 2 catches, 12 yards. Other than that, he's been looking like one of the best receivers in the NFL. And nobody's talking about it. So, I'm going to sit here and talk about it because he is looking very solid this season. So, that is the last thing I'm going to talk about today. Tomorrow or whenever, I will talk about the Halloween episode for NBA and the James Harden trade that came through, and then also the trade deadline. So that is all for y'all today. Stay happy, life's better with you being happy. So, stay blessed.